Welcome to Stuff They Didn't Teach Me in Sunday School. In my years on this earth, I've known some people that could curse. I've known some people that could curse up a storm. I've never known anybody who got paid for it. In today's session, we're going to look at a professional curser, somebody who got paid for cursing other people. Numbers chapter 22, you're introduced to a king by the name of Balak. Balak is king of Moab. He's seen these 3 million or so people milling around the outside of his territory, wiping out people around him on their way to make their way into the promised land. And he panics. He realizes he can't stand against them, can't stand against a God who would part the Red Sea and bring these people out, a God who would be with them for 40 years in the wilderness. He realizes he can't stand against them. His only chance is to find some spiritual force that could combat this spiritual force. So he sends off to Mesopotamia for a professional curser, somebody who's probably more like a witch. And his name is Balaam. As the messenger from Balak comes to Balaam, Balaam gets a word from Yahweh that tells him, don't go. The messenger from Balak insists. Finally, the word from Yahweh says, okay, go. He's on his way, and there's a story while he's on his way that sounds like something from out of Dr. Dolittle. He's on his way, and all of a sudden his donkey stops. And he starts beating his donkey, and the donkey won't go. And then in verse 28 of chapter 22, Yahweh opened the mouth of the ass, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you struck me these 3 times? Now that's pretty astounding, that the donkey would start talking. That's amazing. But what's also amazing to me is the next line. Balaam doesn't miss a beat. He talks right back to the donkey. And Balaam said to the ass, because you've made sport of me, I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you. And the ass said to Balaam, am I not your ass upon which you've ridden all your life long to this day? Was I ever accustomed to do so to you? And he said, no. Part of the amazement is that the donkey talks. Part of the other amazement to me is that Balaam talks right back to him, doesn't miss a beat. Talks to the donkey he's been riding forever. Well, the outcome of this is that God finally opens Balaam's eyes, and Balaam can see what the donkey sees, and that is the angel of the Lord standing in the path to stop the donkey and to inform Balaam that what he really needs to do is go there and bless these people. Well, Balaam shows up for his gig with Balak, his cursing gig, and Balak takes him out where he can see the nation, and he says, okay, let him have it. And in chapter 23, verse 7, what comes out of Balaam's mouth is not a curse, but a blessing. In verse 8, he says, how can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom Yahweh has not denounced? For from the top of mountains I see him, from the hills I behold him. Lo, a people dwelling alone and not reckoning itself among the nations. That concept of holy nation set apart. Even Balaam recognizes that. Who can count the dust of Jacob or the number of the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of righteous, and let my end be like his. In other words, God is blessing this nation. Well, when you just hired somebody to curse somebody and they bless them, you get a little irritated. And Balak's a little irritated. He says to Balaam in verse 11, what have you done to me? I took you to curse my enemies, and behold, you've done nothing but bless them. Balak says, okay, come somewhere else. Maybe it'll work better somewhere else. In verse 13, he says, come to another place from which you may see them. You shall see only the nearest of them, shall not see them all. Then curse them for me from there. In other words, maybe it's the number, the 3 million that you see out there that's making you bless them. Let's just look at a little bit of them, a few of them. We'll go in a little nook or cranny here where you can't see them all and curse them from there. So he goes, and where you can't see all of them, and you see this coming, don't you? He blesses them again. And Balak says in verse 25, just shut up. Neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all, he says. But Balaam answered, hey, I got to do what God tells me to do. Okay, Balak says in 27, I'll take you to another place. Maybe God will let you curse him from there. I believe I'd have sent him home about this time. Takes him to another place, and he blesses him one more time. In verse 10 of chapter 24, Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you've blessed them 3 times. Therefore, flee to your place. In other words, get out of here. Balaam says, in effect, okay, but one more thing. And he turns around and he blesses them one more time. The interesting fact in this 4th blessing, if you look at verse 17, Balaam says, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not nigh. A star shall come forth out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. Looking forward to David, certainly, and ultimately to Jesus Christ. That ultimately is a messianic prophecy. It's also interesting, it's the only place in the Old Testament that a star is mentioned in connection with the birth of the Messiah. Leads me to believe that it's quite possible that where Balaam came from is also the place where those wise men came from who visited Jesus, because they hooked that idea of a star up with the birth of the Messiah. God is still looking out for his people. Even when an enemy king hires a professional curser, God makes him a professional blesser. And God uses Balaam to bless his people.